Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to yet another Game for Thought stream right here at Howest School Digital Arts and Entertainment. My name is Annelie Weiss. I am the Ethics Coordinator in International Game Development at Digital Arts and Entertainment, which we commonly call DIE, and I'm really excited to be back here on Twitch another month, another Game for Thought stream about an ethically relevant topic in the game and digital entertainment industry. If you are a student at DIE, if you are just somebody scrolling through Twitch and finding us amongst all of the other things on the internet, thank you for joining in. We really look forward to this evening's discussion. Game for Thought. What is Game for Thought? What is it all about? So just to give you an overview, if you are new here, Game for Thought is a monthly live stream series that we film right here from DIE about different ethically relevant topics in the industry each month. So in the past, we've had streams about sustainability, accessibility in games, ethics and AI, social media and privacy. And this evening, we bring to you the topic of mobile games. Really excited for this one. I know a lot of our students are interested as well, so looking forward. How will this evening go? So I'm really excited to announce that we will have a guest presenter, Jedidjah Noomen from Tactile Games. Jedidjah is the game director at Tactile Games, joining us all the way from Canada. Jedidjah will be our guest presenter for the evening. She will give us a bit of an introduction to the world of mobile games so we can dip our toes into the topic before the panel discussion. After Jedidjah gives a lovely introduction, we'll take a little bit of a break, and then we will jump right into the panel. Who's going to be joining us on the panel? Of course, Jedidjah herself. We will also have Thomas Waterzooi. Thomas is in charge of the game design, development, and deployment at Studio Waterzooi, located right here in Belgium. Thomas also is a DIE alumna, so he used to study here actually himself. We also have Annelie Biernat. Annelie is joining us from Berlin, and she is the game director at Wooga, which is a mobile game company over there in Germany. We also have, very excited to say, a fellow student in our panel, Daniel Miranda. Daniel hails originally from Brazil, but he's living here in Belgium. He is a first-year game graphics production student. He actually has almost 5 years of experience working within the game industry, primarily in marketing and communications before joining us here in our community. Unfortunately, Fernando Pernica was set to join us tonight. Unfortunately, Fernando's flight was delayed, so Fernando will not be joining us, but perhaps in an upcoming live stream. Fernando is the co-founder and chief business officer at Nefta. He also formerly worked at Google Play Games, and he is based in the UK. So Fernando, if you see this, we miss you, but we know that you will join us for an upcoming stream. So we'll jump into that panel discussion about, again, the topic of mobile games. If you have a question throughout the entire discussion, please write it in the chat. Don't be afraid. Just make sure that you put a capital Q up there in the chat so we know that you are asking a question for us, and we will get to that towards the end of the panel discussion. Just make sure, keep it in the chat, keep it nice and friendly and respectful. Respect the Christmas holiday vibes that we are hoping to cultivate here. And with that, without further ado, I would love to hand it over to our guest speaker for the evening, Jedidjah. Jedidjah, hello. Lovely to have you join us. All right, welcome back. I am joined with Jedidjah Julia Noomen, who again is the game director at Tactile Games, which is located in Denmark, but she is joining us all the way from Canada. Jedidjah, yes.
Yes.
Is it cold over there?
It is actually not as cold as apparently it is in Europe. So,
Okay. Wow. Can we switch? Is that an option?
yeah, we don't have snow here at the moment. So,
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty chilly in here, hence my sweater. But I'm ready to get into this discussion. Jedidjah, thank you so much for joining us. Take it away. Take it away with mobile gaming.
yes. And good evening, everybody, or good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's morning for me. I'm happy to be here and do a small introduction into mobile gaming. Just a little disclaimer, I am not a gaming historian. So everything that you will see here is let's say just a generalization of mobile gaming. This introduction is basically just to make sure that everybody who is watching this panel has an idea about the history of mobile gaming, like where did we come from and where are we now. So we have a little bit of context about the whole discussion that we'll have later on. Having said that, mobile gaming, what is mobile gaming is obviously the first question. I get that a lot because is mobile gaming the term for any game you can play on a mobile phone, or is it about a specific genre of games? And what about console PC games that get ported or re-released on a mobile platform? There's a lot of discussion about what is mobile, and there's different definitions for it. I think generally when people talk about mobile gaming, they tend to think about the games that have been made for mobile specifically that are in the, let's say, the free-to-play realm or the freemium realm, those kinds of games. But obviously, there are many more games that aren't on the mobile platform. So this is an ongoing discussion that I'm sure that we will get into during the panel as well. But just to give you an idea of the term of mobile gaming is a bit fuzzy. Let's get into the history of mobile gaming, and this will hopefully also explain why the terminology for mobile gaming is a bit fuzzy. So yeah, where did we start out? We started with Snake basically in 1997 on the Nokia, because when mobile phones were first released, there was no gaming, obviously. But once Nokia started to develop their mobile devices, they started to think about what can we do to add value to these phones. There's technology here that we can use. And Snake was one of the first games to be added to the mobile device specifically. So that means that anyone who had a specific Nokia phone could play Snake, the classic Snake game, on their mobile phone. A couple of other games followed, but the biggest next step was basically made with Asphalt GT, racing game in 2004. So quite a couple of years later. As you can see, it's in color, like color screens on phones now became a thing. Technology became a bit more developed. So that means that we could see more extensive gaming on that mobile device. The moment that everything really changed was when iPhone started the App Store in 2008, and obviously the Android phones followed. But the App Store made it easier for game developers to actually make something that could easily be distributed on mobile phones. Before that, much more difficult from a technical point of view, and now the App Store made it easy. So that was really It's still going strong, but 2009 was the first moment when Angry Birds hit our small screens and it became a hit. After that, a lot of games followed, and this is also where we get into that point of mobile gaming being synonymous with these kinds of games. Farmville was the next one that was a big hit, and that worked together with Facebook. So basically, Facebook was really big at that moment. People who were active on Facebook were able to play Farmville and play it on their mobile phones, play for a couple of minutes, sometimes a bit more than minutes, but in small chunks on their phones. That's how it was designed, to just do that in between stuff when you're waiting for a bus, when you're at home, logging into Facebook, doing a bit of Farmville. And this is how a lot of mobile games got developed throughout those years. Then a couple of years later, I think there came a couple of bigger developments from the technical point of view. I have Temple Run here as an example of technology really developing itself and making it easier to make more elaborate gaming possible on mobile phones. Another one is Pokemon Go. Of course, before that, we already had Ingress, but Pokemon Go was really the breakthrough for also using AR in mobile gaming and making that really successful for a really big chunk of mobile users, some of them who never had really done any proper gaming on their mobile phone, and obviously also reeling in a lot of younger people. From there on, it just continued. We have Fortnite Mobile as another example of a free game that now came to mobile and became just as big there, and really rallied a lot of people to not just play on their mobile phone by themselves, but again, just like Farmville before, with Facebook, also play with others. So that development of having that phone with you and being able to just play when others are playing all the time, that really came to fruition with Fortnite Mobile. So where are we now? Obviously, there's a lot going on, and the historical things I mentioned don't do justice for the whole mobile situation. But at this moment, we have curated content. Apple Arcade, it's not been the success that they wanted. That's a whole different discussion. But one of the developments that we had is because the mobile gaming world became so big, and there was a lot of what we call shovelware, copies of existing games, get-rich-quick schemes. That whole app store is getting cluttered. So Apple, a couple of years ago, decided, let's do some curated content so players can find the really specific things, the exquisite gaming experiences, the indie games. We will curate that and guide our iPhone users towards that curated content. So that's been a development. Another development has been AAA game mobile editions. This has happened for the last couple of years. Call of Duty is one of the actively working, sometimes themselves, sometimes with mobile specialized gaming companies to make those mobile editions of their big hits. Then we have new hits. I put Marvel Snap here. I'm sure a lot of you played that as well. It's an awesome game. I'm enjoying it a lot too. But we have from what we're used to on mobile, what we're used to as being successful on mobile. So it feels like there's been a development of different kinds of gaming types and genres coming to the surface and being like really big hits. So that's something that's happening. Then we have the convergence. Netflix gaming is an example. Convergence meaning that companies that are not in the gaming realm, they do start doing stuff with gaming and often with mobile gaming. So it's Netflix that is now developing mobile and actively offering mobile games to their subscribers. But there's a couple of other film studios also working on mobile gaming. There's more development in broadening IPs within the mobile realm. So that convergence is also very actively happening. And then the final thing here is crossplay. So having games that you can play on your mobile, but when you get home, you can play it on your console, on your PC, on your handheld, just cross-playing, so you can play that game. And if you're playing at home and you need to go to school, you can still continue playing while you travel because you can continue playing on your mobile phone. So those are the things that are sort of making up the current mobile landscape, I would say. This is just a bit of background. This is about genres. You can see from this chart, that's already a couple of years old, but it shows very clearly what kind of games we have on the mobile devices that are useful. And just to mention a couple of genres, because I am sure that not everyone listening in is very familiar with that. We have a couple of main genres that are mentioned here. Well, casino, I'm just ignoring for now. I don't think we'll talk about that or want to talk about that. But the main genres on mobile gaming are, you have the hyper casual. So hyper casual games are like really easy to start. They can be played by anyone. There's not a big tutorial. You just start and you do it, basically. Really aimed at a broad audience. You don't need a lot of skill. And these games usually earn their money through ad revenue. Then you have the casual games. They also have a mass appeal, but they are have a bit more gameplay or more skill that you need as a player in them, or more narrative. It's just a little bit more intricate than hyper casual, but they still have mass appeal, and they usually get most of their revenue from in-app purchases. And then we have core gaming, it's called here. It's also mid-core gaming, actually, if you compare it to hardcore gaming, which is usually not on the mobile realm, although now that we're seeing more mobile games being derived from console games, we actually are getting into that hardcore. But in general, core games are for the more experienced gaming audience. As you can see here, it's like shooters, action, racing games, stuff like that. So they're what we call core and not casual or hyper casual. So just so you have that terminology a bit. I put a couple of things to think about in here, maybe something to discuss later. Kids now start their gaming journey on mobile phones and iPads. This is a big difference compared to nowadays. Anybody who is like, let's say under 6 or maybe under 10 even already, they start their gaming journey usually on mobile phones and iPads. So there's a different way of into that gaming realm that might change the mobile gaming realm as well. Casual games get more downloads, but the core games get more revenue. when you compare it. That's also something that's interesting, I think. Casual games, they need a lot of content to retain traction. This might be something that we get to discuss later on. I'm sure my Wooga colleague will have a lot to say about that as well. A commonly made mistake, especially by companies who think they can copy or make something fast for mobile. If you want to keep players in your game, you need a lot of content. So making a casual game is no easy thing to do, and it takes time and resources. And then the last thing to think about is that for casual game, advertisements are the key to success. So it really is about making those ads worthwhile and getting people to be interested in your game through the ads, because you are catering to a really broad audience. So that means your audience is everywhere. So you can't focus on like hardcore gamers and get them through specific internet websites or stuff like that. You really need to cater to the whole broad world, which means that general advertising is usually the key to success. And then one thing about freemium versus premium, because this is also something that a lot of people maybe don't realize if you're not working in the mobile gaming realm. There used to be a premium model for casual mobile gaming, and premium means you pay upfront. So you pay a couple of euros, and then you buy the game and you get the whole game. That premium model that started declining around 2017. Oh, I think I was gone for a moment. I have a connection that sometimes drops out. So I will pick it up from this freemium versus premium again, just to make sure. Front for your mobile gaming. So you are paying a couple of euros, then you buy the game and you don't have to pay anything else. That premium model started declining after the introduction of hyper casual. So usually players expect to get a game for free and then maybe pay later. Premium now is often for indies, more artistic games, some core games, but casual and hyper casual is mostly free to play, premium. Players expect that, they will pay for it, they pay for in-game content, but if you actively block them from continuing, something that happened a couple of years ago where you would like get the first couple of levels for free and then you need to pay for the rest, that used to be quite normal, but nowadays players really don't like that. So if you actively block them from continuing, they will not enjoy that and will not have a positive feeling. Mobile gaming realm in terms of how do you get your audience, how do you keep them, which is definitely something that we will get into later on because it's a bit different, I think, from console and PC. And one more mention about the freemium versus premium. App stores favor games that are often updated. So they promote live ops games and games as a service. So that's games that get those updates and new content every week or every month. They will promote that more. So that's also why you will see those more in the App Store, and it makes it perhaps a bit harder if you're an indie game developer making a premium game, because you want that App Store feature and you might not get it as easily as you want. And just a last thing to think about, mobile revenue is about 30% of all gaming revenue. So that's a big chunk. 48% of mobile gamers are women, but 47% of all gamers are women. So the idea that women mostly play mobile is definitely not true, and something to definitely think about when you're thinking about the mobile gaming realm. And that was it. This was a a very short introduction, but hopefully some food for thought as well. As mentioned here, all content heavily generalized for time purposes, so don't take this as the gospel. It is just a small introduction. We're going to take the panel. Thank you, and see you in a moment.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking on with us. And thank you to Jedidjah for a wonderful presentation, really dipping our toes into the topic of mobile games. And I already saw in the chat that this really brought a lot of nostalgia for some people. I know I saw Snake and I really felt something personally. Was a big Snake fan back in the day. So thank you so much for that brief history and also for the food for thought to think about during our panel discussion. I am very excited to have Jedidjah. Annelie, can you wave? Can you give us a wave? Daniel, can you give us a wave? All right, Fernando, can you give us a wave? And last but not least, Thomas, can you give us a wave? Amazing. I'm so excited to have a very diverse group of panelists on board for our discussion about mobile games this evening. As I mentioned before, if you out there in the audience, if you have any questions this evening, put it in the chat. Do not be afraid. Just make sure to put a Q beforehand, and then we will get to your questions as soon as possible. Just to make it clear for everyone, Annelie from Wooga is in the top left corner. In the top middle is Daniel Miranda. Daniel is a student here at Digital Arts and Entertainment, also experienced in marketing in games. Bottom left is Jedidjah, as you saw before. Middle bottom is going to be Fernando, who has joined us this evening. So I completely lied earlier. Ignore me. Fernando is joining us from the UK, and then we have Thomas bottom right. All right, let's jump into it. So first question for you all. I think it's actually a question that came to me immediately when we decided that we were going to include mobile games in the topic of this domain within Game for Thought. And the question is, why is the mobile game industry rarely discussed in great detail outside of specialist websites despite its immense size? How do you respond to the coverage, the attention, the salience that is kind of placed on mobile games in comparison to other gaming counterparts? And whoever would like to start, yes, go ahead, Daniel. I see you first. Go right ahead.
Well, I think that's more generalized problem. It's kind of tug of war game that you pull the rope and against the other team, between the media and between the public. In my eyes, every time the media is trying to figure it out what the public wants to see, at the same time the public is kind of trying to look what the media is putting out. So it can be quite a conflict. But it's not very complicated. Like the media will think and will take choices to see what kind of contents will pop up and will make more traffic to their sites. So is both teams trying to predict what the other one's gonna talk about something or about a specific subject. But every time that you see big articles and from big sites and regular media, classic media tradition, it's basically gonna stay inside the range of world known companies like Nintendo, Sony, and other Activision that has Candy Crush. Yeah, that little game called Candy Crush. Nothing too outrageous.
What's that?
Oh, it's the biggest one that exists basically.
Totally
I never seen anyone finish Candy Crush, by the way. So I think it's kind of a tug of war play between these both parties, or public of interest, if you can call that.
All right.
It's a cycle, basically.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniel. I see also Annelie. I think you wanted to say something as well. Go right ahead.
Yes, I mean, I was wondering from which perspective this question is asked, because I also feel like in the universities, also in the German universities where they focus on game design, it's often not as big of a topic. But at least in the bubble where I live, it's in all different areas of my life quite a topic. So it's a topic in the legislation. So there's huge discussions on loot boxes, on what are the right age restrictions for certain games. I'm a mother, so in my parents groups, it's always a topic because what kind of content are kids allowed to interact with? And I'm also trying to educate other parents. So there it's often a topic. For my son, it's a topic because he finds it so cool that I know the developers of some of the games his friends really like to play. And and since I work in mobile games, like all the things that I see online, that I hear online, even on social media, is all about mobile games, to be honest. So for me, it's like day in, day out. But I think that it is present in very different areas of life. It may not be seen as the cool topic. And I think that's maybe also what Daniel wanted to say. Like, when you're about what does the mass enjoy, it's like something that you remember from your childhood, like Super Mario or the cool new stuff that uses the latest technology, right? Those are the things that really click well in social media and in the bigger bubbles.
So what I hear from you, Annelie, is that it is actually very prevalent in the circles of your life, actually, but maybe not the hip thing to talk about. All right, Jedidjah, go ahead.
Because I agree with what Annelie says. I see that same thing happening, but that's also because if you work, mobile, and you sort of get an eye for that, I guess. I think part of it is the same issue that you have as an indie developer, that it's always hard to compete with like the bigger studios and the bigger titles. That's just in general what happens when you're talking about let's say the game journalism. It's hard to get in between there. And for mobile gaming, when you're talking about the specific mobile gaming, so not like the ports or the smaller indie games, but the really like the free to play, that kind of games, it's also hard, I think, to put that in the same context as PC and console games, because there's a game that is released, a journalist gets that game, plays it from beginning to end, and then reviews it. But because so many mobile games are games as a service, which means that they get updates all the time, and they don't have, well, you just mentioned, like, nobody's ever finished Candy Crush. That's because they make new levels every week. So it's hard to define mobile games in that way and put it in that same mold that gaming journalists usually put it in. And because mobile gaming, as we've seen in my introduction, started as a sort of a add-on instead of something that is its own entity, that also doesn't help in getting it there into the mainstream gaming journalism.
All right, Fernando, something to add as well? Fernando, unfortunately, we cannot hear you, I think. You may be muted. I could hear you moments ago. So we will one day hear you again.
Here we go. How about now?
Okay, lovely. Awesome,
Great.
Go right ahead.
Awesome. So I think sort of everyone said it definitely hits this a chord for sure, and what I also believe it is. I think the types of marketing that you do for the different types of gaming, right? All those sort of AAA games that you play on console, you play on PC, they're very blockbustery. They need a lot of marketing because the investments have been made beforehand. Now, if you look at mobile games, the investments are usually made more sort of they're drip fed from the income that you have from the game. So you're able to get all the revenues you get from the game and sort of feed that into marketing in the future. So you have a much more sustainable long-term business. whilst the AAA developer will have that sort of the really big costs beforehand to pay all the developers or the designers. So they need to be much more blockbustery. They need to work with the media to get the name out there. The distributors, a lot more traditional, so to speak. So you have to do a lot more of a cinema. Imagine it's like a cinema and versus Netflix kind of like dual kind of thing in a very sort of rough sketch.
Yeah, actually, that is a great comparison, Fernando. Thomas, I also wonder your experience, developing your game. How has this, I guess, like media press coverage, how have you experienced this in your own experience?
Well, I decided to do the marketing myself, so maybe it was not a decision, but just I didn't find a publisher that was daring enough to publish a mobile game, but that's another story. But so this forced me to hire a PR agency. And also at this PR agency, they were very afraid, of having to promote a mobile game, and they actually advised me to put all of my eggs or as much of my eggs in the Steam or PC market basket, and then just hopefully have some tripling over towards the mobile market. So yeah.
So you did it all yourself, Thomas.
Well, I mean, this marketing agency or PR agency, it was more PR than marketing, so they did the press contact, right? But this is something, I mean, it's a bold statement, but it's been rising up more and more, is that press coverage doesn't sell games anymore, doesn't convert to sales anymore. So, but again, that's a whole other, that's not mobile specific, I think.
All right. Yeah, I'm very I'm curious to hear what you all have to say because you come from very, very unique, different spaces in the mobile industry. So awesome to have you all together. I wonder about the process of bringing your game mobile. So comparing a studio that has PC console games and you bring that to the mobile space. The difference in terms of the process, beforehand, in comparison to starting out fully mobile, what the differences might be.
I can just address that. I didn't really. I did the opposite. Like I focused a bit on mobile, so I guess that's not what your question was about. But I was kind of targeting both at the same time, I guess. So for me, the reasoning was that I don't know if Jedidjah mentioned this, but phones are also technically the most sold gaming console in the world, right? So for me, it only made sense to just start making games for this because the border of entry, the barrier of entry, is so small. And actually, this leans a bit to the previous question, but on a different level, is that my friends or the people that I usually surround me with, they don't play that many games in the first place. And so for them, this barrier of entry of being able to play it on a phone would be way lower, right? So this is always a bit the thing I'm struggling with. I'm actually trying to make games for non-gamers, which is a bad business model. But yeah.
But an interesting one, nonetheless. All right, so you went fully mobile from the beginning, Thomas, based on also, what you saw around you. Interesting. Did anyone go another way, or were you interested in games that weren't mobile from another domain? Go ahead, Annelie.
Yeah, maybe I can bring up an example where so social gaming, the pre-form of a lot of the mobile games started on Facebook. So Wooga, for example, started with a lot of Facebook games that went viral over Facebook. And when I joined the company, I worked on a hidden object game that was built for web, so for Facebook. And of course, the interaction when you use a mouse cursor to find hidden objects and to interact with your game is very different than if you just use your finger. And also the screen is much smaller, and maybe hidden object there is a good example. Like, you actually want to see the items, you want to find what's hidden in the scene, and you cannot have the same animations because they could be in your way of vision actually when you are on the small screen. And also just how you interact with the medium. So for us, actually, in the past, it has been way easier to design and build for mobile and then port it to the web rather than the other way around, because a lot of things that work on the small screen can also work on the big screen, whereas other way around, it's much more difficult.
All right, very interesting. Did Daniel, go right ahead?
Yeah, okay. I unmuted myself. I'm gonna compliment what said earlier. You have really to think about how you're gonna translate your game into another media. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when where it's going from. If it's PC to mobile or mobile to PC. I saw some examples when I was working with Gameplan. It was a publisher for the median and a small market for Brazil mainly. And a lot of times they wanted to fit the largest quantity of features possible. And sorry, this is not a good idea, because complement again what was said earlier. You're gonna expect the player gonna put the fingers right in front of the screen, so you cannot put too much information on the HUD, for example. And believe it or not, cell phones are not quite as powerful as a 390 RTX, so you gotta take that in mind. So I think a good alternative to translate our existing IP to another media is trying to think about separate environments for your game or for your main mechanic that you're trying to build. For example, Nintendo didn't try to make just a regular Mario Kart on mobile. They dumb it down some of the mechanics that you can do to appeal a wider audience. There's something similar. I see some similarities with this X strategy with the handheld strategy that you can do. It's not like translating the existing IPs to another media and call it a day, but you have like to transform the concepts of the main gameplay to another environment and make adjustments to that.
You actually read my mind, Daniel. That was a question that was coming up actually. So let's imagine that you take something. But Annelie had mentioned earlier that actually the plan that Wooga took was actually to take something mobile and then bring it to the PC. So actually the other way around. I'm wondering, for mobile games, is it common to add a feature to make it unique in some way in comparison to a PC or console counterpart? Are there any common features added to mobile games to kind of bring that same excitement that somebody might experience with the PC counterpart?
Actually, yeah. Oh, sorry. No, I also just wanted to add, I removed the filter because people in the chat were having epileptic attacks, apparently. So sorry about that.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. We love your
really
natural
like.
atmosphere.
Oh,
looks beautiful.
This is a deep fake of my face. This is still not me.
I knew it.
No. Anyway, so I actually did the opposite, or I didn't do the opposite, but I promised the opposite, which is actually I'm still a bit ashamed of. But I overpriced not overpriced. Sorry, it's the opposite. I lowered my price for mobile versus Steam, and hence I felt a bit guilty. So I promised some extra features on the PC version, which I never implemented. So yeah, that's like the opposite thing, because actually I wanted to ask more money on mobile as well, but as we all know, then I would just kill myself. I mean, my business model, I would shoot myself in the foot, as they say in Belgium. So
All right. Yeah, Fernando, go right ahead.
Yeah, actually, Thomas's strategy is very common amongst developers that publish for both Steam and mobiles. It's very, very common. Sometimes you have a game on for $60 or €60 on Steam or console, but then it'll be $6 on mobile. So it's not the exact same game, but something very, very similar. But answering your original question, Ali, was there are thousands of different strategies that developers can use for mobile games. Timers, gates, little. There's actually studies gone into how can you motivate a player to behave in a certain way or respond in a certain way to come back to the game. For example, like for some timers or sort of the Wheel of Fortune kind of style games, for example, they can bring, they're not actually central to the game, but they can actually help bring the player back into the game. So putting a time on that thing and create a mini game within the game are all kind of psychological, ways that you can actually sort of encourage more active participation. Because once you have more active participation in the game, players tend to be more loyal to the game, and they tend to be, spending more time in the game, and therefore spending more money in the game. So there's a lot of different strategies. I'm sure Annelie and all the other folks here will probably have a lot more insights than I do. But yeah, it's a very interesting, way how this little strategies can be used for to luring players and entertain them for the long run.
I think adding to that you point to something that I think we all know and players do, but don't really know that they're doing that, which is that on mobile, you need to really entice people to spend their money. And I think the common idea is that this is true for like casual gamers who don't want to pay for anything. But to be honest, it's the more hardcore players as well. I wonder, like people who are listening in right now, just think to yourselves, like, how much money I spend on like console gaming, and am I willing to spend money on mobile gaming as well? And you will see that most hardcore gamers also are reluctant to spend money on mobile gaming. For some weird reason, we're all constructed to think that mobile gaming should be like very cheap or free. And you see that developers have bowed to that realm, basically. Not saying it's a bad thing per se. I mean, you need to move with the market in order to earn money. But like a game like Vampire Survivors, for instance, which is definitely for hardcore gamers, it's now on mobile for free, while it's €3 on Steam. Still like a small amount of money, but the fact that they chose to make it free on mobile says a lot about the mobile realm. Obviously, making it free also hopefully gets more people in there because there's a bigger audience, but those things just sort of balance each other out, and sort of in a kind of weird circle of audiences not wanting to pay, and then developers trying to entice them to play and then pay after all, and then players still not wanting to pay, but maybe sometimes if we push the right button. So it's a sort of weird circle that's going, I think, is not happening.
Oh, we lost her. But Jedidjah, she told us in 10 seconds she'll come right back. There she is. She's back. Welcome back, Jedidjah. All right. So the conversation quickly and, to be honest, expectedly heads over to monetization. It's a topic that quickly comes up when anybody, I think, here thinks about mobile gaming. Is how do mobile game and mobile game developers, how do they make their money? You say before, so I hear that, yeah, people who, and I wonder, those of you in the chat, I'd love to hear you also voice your opinions. Yeah, gamers are more and more willing to spend money on PC console games. Maybe not so much with mobile. So I'd love to actually already jump into the discussion regarding free-to-play versus premium games, your experiences with both, the pros and cons of both and the impacts as well. Thomas, I know. So you published your game. Please touch the artwork. And I know that one is a premium game. And I'd love to hear more about your experience with that as well.
Well, actually, this stream is a bit too early because I'm on the verge of experimenting with the try before you buy model, which Jedidjah in her talk said was absolutely not done anymore. So I'm really scared about this.
But he's bringing it back.
Well, the thing is, try before you buy basically means a demo with then a paywall, right? Saying like buy a in-app purchase to unlock the full game. And yeah, she's absolutely right. If you look at all of the reviews of games that have been doing this, then the majority of these reviews get like 1 star saying this is just not what I expected. The game should be free. There's some kind of entitlement there, which is very bizarre, but okay, this is how the market is or the world is. And now I'm just trying to figure out how I can find, the perfect way in between. And I think it has to do with communication, being straight up front about what the product is, maybe even putting it in the name, like it's a demo, So please touch your artwork demo. And then maybe, putting it really big, the first sentence in the description, then again at the start of the app, like just overloading it. But even then, you will probably get bad reviews because, again, there's some strange, rules in that market. But anyway, I started off premium because I really don't like ads, and I believe in the quality, the value of games in general, and I see no reason why we should adjust this perception on mobile. On the opposite, and this might sound a bit boomer of me, is that I think we should go against it and re-educate part of this younger generation that has been, starting to believe that these games don't have any value anymore. But it is a difficult thing. But on that end, I know this is a long answer. We can split it over to later. I still believe in the premium model because it is such a small segment in comparison to the free-to-play segment. I believe it's easier to stand out again. And this is the only point I didn't agree on in your introduction, is that these app stores, they do tend to pick out more and more of these original indie games, whether they're premium or not. So, I mean, it proves I won the Google Play Indie Award. I was Apple Design Award finalist. So those are the 2 major platforms that basically have me at the top of their list. So yeah, I don't know. Any opinions on that?
I totally agree with you. Also on trying the premium model, especially for the game that you make. I think that's really a good idea. And I do agree with what you're saying, is that there is more attention given to, let's say, more indie games, more artistic games by the app stores, which is awesome. And I'm really happy that they're doing that. It started with Apple Arcade, and Google is also doing a lot of great work for that. The downside is, however, I think when you're talking about the general audience, is that they tend to look less at those kind of things, like those awards and stuff like that, and just see like the App Store when they open up the App Store and they see like the little articles in there, and those little articles.
She will be back in a few seconds. I've been instructed to let the audience know.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, so basically, when you do multiple updates, you get into that App Store feature more often. So I think the general audience sees that more. Agree that the app stores themselves.
Yeah, to be clear, while she's gone, I'll fill in the gaps. So
Go right ahead, Thomas. Go right ahead.
I'm not
Opportune.
rich. I have this representation, so she's absolutely right. I am not rich. It doesn't necessarily convert, and you're right. More updates means more featuring. So yeah, I am actually trying out an extra technique as well in there to maybe even spread localization, which is a cheap trick. So, but don't tell anyone. To
This
maybe
totally
get
isn't on
featured more and
Twitch.
more. It's like you introduce some languages and then you introduce another language and another language. I don't know.
All
We'll
right,
see.
Annelie, I see you want to share as well.
Yes, yes. I think this is a great conversation to have because, I mean, in the end, of course, the awards, also the game that I worked on got an award from Google. Also, the that Apple is pushing the indie developers is great. Like these things are great, but they do not translate in downloads and do not translate in money because Apple and Google, their primarily business model is ads. So why would they give you the installs for free if you could also pay for them, right? And so I think this is like a chicken and egg problem. Where do we start? I think there's some great initiatives in the market of promoting premium games on mobile as well. Netflix and so on, like Apple Arcade. Some people argue how successful that is, but there are some alternative programs that I think are worth pursuing as well. For the mobile games that are majorly free to play, I can only say that for us it worked really great to not think about the money in the forefront, but rather thinking about creating an experience and really finding an audience that resonates with the experience that you deliver. So you really have to first understand the audience, what is actually the experience that they're looking for, and then try to serve this the best in the niche that you're trying to carve out for yourself. And then actually once you have this connection and once you really talk to your audience, talk to the players, get their feedback, implement their feedback, you start developing trust and you really want to build this experience for years to come. So our biggest game right now, June's Journey, for example, is 5 years in the market and it's growing because we always invest into the relationship with the audience. We get more installs. Like it's a lot of players that have gaming as a hobby. It's not necessarily the young audience that comes with the attitude, oh, everything has to be free because I can play it free. If you have the older audiences as well, they understand that this is their hobby. They have like, I don't know, the Netflix abo is their hobby and they also put aside $20 per month to just invest into their beautiful June's Journey island, right? And then they appreciate this is something that really lightens their day. Sometimes they get social connections over these games and they have something in their life that they otherwise can't get. And then they're also happy to pay for it. But it shouldn't be like your first intention should never be just the money. Then you will not get it.
Yeah, and also what you say, Annelie, it directly echoes what Thomas was talking about when he mentioned transparency and the crucial, the crucial element of being transparent with the players, with your community, building a community. Daniel, I think you also wanted to share something as well. I saw, go right ahead.
Yeah, what Thomas said, it's a difficult conflict. Getting back to the notion that mobile games can actually have a price, because when the public sees the first options that are free or freemium, they kind of start to get a little bit used to it. So I'm so sorry, and so they start to think, oh, I'm seeing this beautiful game, some marvelous game that I'm seeing here. It's free to play. I can spend money if I want to. So why should I pay for a regular game in the first place in an app store? So that's a difficult task to tackle because we have to educate, like you said, so like beautifully said, to educate the public that a lot more can can go with mobile game, not only this kind of monetization. I'm not saying they're necessarily. I think that we can go meet a compromise between the dark patterns on business model, and having some kind of compromise that we can like get the money for the developer, because at least in Brazil, on my field of work, most of these developers that start up, they actually choose for a mobile game because the return of investments, it's quite attractive. You don't have to spend a lot like in the double A or triple A video games, and the barrier of entry is quite low. So they try to get a business model that emphasize of long-term relationship with the game, with the gamer, the public, because there's something quite dangerous of creating an indie developer here in Brazil. That's the valley of death. Once you get a game out in any store that you would like to choose, you have to wait for the to return your investments over your product, and sometimes games take a while to sell, and sometimes the developer cannot engage another project because they don't have the money to fund another project, or and specifically in Brazil, at least, we don't have a lot of organizations and companies that take care of it. In Brazil, we have a strange case that a developer must create a game, create a community, sell their game, distribute the game, review patents with digital stores. They have to do everything. So it's easy to get out of juice, if I should say. Well, the game is trying to sell more copies and more copies to pay itself, to pay the costs that they have, like for salary or even energy, operational costs in general. Like you can make your game inside your home alone for 7 or 8 years. It doesn't matter. It's gonna cost you. Time is money. You know?
Daniel, I'm really glad that you bring your own work experience in Brazil into this conversation. We are also, and we were discussing it before the stream started, we're a very international group here, actually. So we have someone in Canada who's headquartered in Denmark, a Belgian, someone from the UK that's also Brazilian, someone from Brazil but in Belgium now, someone in Germany. I'm American. So very diverse international group. And I wonder, so Daniel, you speak about the experience in Brazil. If there are any notable regional differences in terms of the mobile game space and indie developers specifically.
Well, there's specific. There's a one big specific that we have here. It's we have a different work progress or process or fluxogram that you call it, to make a game out, to launch a game in general, and we have some holes. We don't have a Devolver Digital or Raw Fury or something of sort to take care of the medium and the small market. It's starting to change. It's not like it's doomed forever, but it takes a while. It takes a while, and so the developer has to take care of a lot of stuff that he wasn't formed to do it. He wasn't educated to do it. He knows how to make games. That's what he does. Uh, but then again, because of that hole that we have in the process of work and gaming industry, we have to take care of a lot of stuff. But about consuming games, I can be a little bit outdated. It's been a while. But I had some examples on my one of my previous projects that people actually liked the ads. Quite curiously, they actually liked the ads, because if you watch a 30-second ad, you can get another chance of the game. By day, you have like a stamina gate that you have 5 tries to tackle the game. If you don't, you have to wait for another 24 hours. Uh, we started to think that's gonna it was a little bit too much, a little bit too much. I was talking alongside the developer, the rest of the team. But then again, when we took it out, we implemented another way to monetize the game, another way to put ads, basically, because like like we said earlier, Google primarily works with ads because why not? They own this kind of expertise, at least on the web. But we received some comments on the App Store and the Google Play Store that actually they did like, because they wanted to continue to play the game, and that's why this can be a dangerous weapon. If you know how to handle this and you have some questionable motives, you can do a lot. So it's gonna take a while to this relationship that we consumers have with mobile games. It's quite complicated because the nefarious way already showed some results, so it's hard to break. You know.
That's really interesting. It's the first time I've heard personally that that people really enjoyed ads.
Yeah.
So it extremely interesting. Annelie, I see you want to add something.
Yes. So you ask a little bit about regional differences as well, and I think that there are, for me, maybe four clusters that I have detected in my work. One is the Nordic cluster, where I still see like a lot of great indie developers and a lot of games that actually still find traction from Norway, from Finland, from Sweden, from Denmark. Like this Nordic cluster is very special because they have a unique collaboration sense where they really exchange with each other, collaborate with each other, and where they also have, I guess, the funding that you were talking about, Daniel, that might be missing in Brazil is actually there in the Nordics. So they can be experimental and they help each other fund each other's projects. So the Nordic cluster is very special. Then generally the America, Western, English-speaking cluster is like where most free-to-play games. It's like one way of making games. It's highly dominated by huge publishers. By there might be like some micro networks like the Nordics ones, but the West is very money-only, big companies. And then you have the Asian market, which is a completely different world. What works in Asia, the features that the Asian games need, it's the themes that they talk about in mobile games. It's very, very different. It's like you can almost not compare it, and there's almost no game that makes it big that comes from a Western company that actually succeeds in Asia. But there might be some Asian games that really hit big in the West as well. And then there are some emerging markets, Africa, countries where they don't have easily access to microtransactions, where they have new kinds of payment systems, new kinds of entertainment setups, and where they have also different kind of cultural tastes on games. And I see that there's more and more investment now also in these emerging markets, so that the regional needs there are met as well, because they're not really met by what we deliver from the West or from Asia.
So it's really, really very culturally and context dependent then. Fernando, go right ahead.
Yeah, something to add to Annelie, and actually shapes a lot of the things that she mentioned, and she mentioned some very important things like payments, for example, is devices, right? Not every region of the world use the same power kind of devices. Some, in maybe Latin America, maybe in Africa, devices are much more less powerful, sort of simmer down. Sometimes they have, a slimmed down version of Facebook, for example, right? And then you have the most sort of up-to-date devices in Asia and in America. So, and you can see also the devices, we had this analysis within Google Play. We have this, you can see that the price or the average cost or the average revenue per user will be much higher, when the device of the user was much more advanced, because, they can enjoy a much more pleasant experience without lags, without anything like that, right? So they would stay longer in the game, they would enjoy the game, more if they were using a more powerful device. So you can actually correlate, the power of the device with, how the user performs in the game. And that's a massive differences between players from America all the way from to, let's say, Africa or something like that, somewhere like that.
Yeah, and Annelie also mentioned transactions, microtransactions, and payments. And Fernando, I know you are now with Nefta. which is a Web3 game platform. And I wonder if you can share more about Nefta, Web3 gaming, blockchain games, and so on.
Yeah, it's a very sometimes controversial topic, but some people think it's quite sort of Wild Westy still. It's quite new, very nascent industry. But I think there's something really interesting about the fact that blockchain can enable developers to give players ownership of the assets in their games, allow them to trade those assets to build out their characters. For example, they spent years building out characters or building out assets in their games, and they can now sort of do that, and they can trade that in on the marketplace, for example. So giving them that possibility is something that really excites me. But beyond that as well, I think what we see in the industry right now is that it's become so hard for developers to really stand out and to find the right players. With the privacy changes from iOS, which is probably going to be followed by Google very soon, it's costly, and so you have to be really a big spender to be able to really make a dent in the market and make your product known. And I think now with the blockchain, which if you think about it, is a public ledger where you can see the transactions, you can see where those wallets are spending their money, you can see how much they spent, which games they're coming from, all of these things. So all of a sudden we have all this anonymous database that we can now advertise to, right? And it's something that's really exciting, and no one's really thinking about the potential for reaching those players that want to find new games. And they don't want to be targeted by another Marvel game, for example. They want to maybe have something different. So there's another option there for them to do that. So what we're doing, we're just basically giving developers the tools to build those games, right? Something very very costly to develop for the blockchain. I think the salary of a blockchain developer nowadays is going for 5 times the salary of a normal software engineer, so it's very costly to develop, and we're just helping them give those tools to developers so they can build great games. Because otherwise, if you ever try to go into a blockchain game, it's horrible, right? It's a nightmare. I mean, I've given up so many times. I lost so much money experimenting with it. So in a way, I felt in the skin what it was like, and it's cool that all these new tools are coming up. But as I said, there's a very new space, and there's a lot of thinking that we need to do as an industry before we can say, yeah, this is a good thing, yeah, this is going to be the next big thing, because we need to get games and game developers, more importantly, excited about it, and we need to get really good concepts out there and show that this actually works, right? And then we can sort of be ready for the next wave of growth that we're hopefully going to spur on.
All right, I see the time has absolutely flown by. Crazy times. It is time to head on over to the audience Q&A. We have a few questions already in the chat for now. Again, if you would like to submit a question, please do, for either Annelie, Jedidjah, Fernando, or Thomas, or Daniel. Go right ahead. I see Digital Eve asks, when you get spammed by ads for a mobile game, the company throws a lot of money into the advertisement. Is this actually profitable or shown in numbers of downloads, or do they get the money from the microtransactions and in-game ads instead of downloads?
I can comment a bit on that. I mean, it's not my official line of work, but as I think I mentioned in the introduction, it obviously varies between the different mobile games. For some of them, ads are more profitable. For some of them, microtransactions are more profitable. But it's always a balance. So as a player, you can assume that when you're playing one of the bigger games, that what they're doing in that game is exactly what they need to do to earn the money. Because in mobile gaming, there is so much data. It's all about that data on the backflip of the game. Basically, mobile allows you to see everything and anything about the players. So that means that you can target and pinpoint exactly what the best strategy will be. This is also something that can be misused. I think it's mentioned already before. That's scary. I am happy that I work for a company that is ethical and does not use that kind of data to, let's say, extort players, because sometimes that will happen, unfortunately, which is I think is horrible. But I think as Annelie can mention, I think your Wooga is also very ethical in making use of how players how the player information is distributed, as far as I know Wooga. And I think that in general, you need the ads basically to get people into your game. So there's when you're talking about ads, it's two-way street. It's not just earning money from ads within your game. It's also you making the ads to put in the games that other people are playing, so you get them into your own game. So yeah, that's a two-way street, basically.
Yeah, go ahead, Fernando.
Yes, exactly what you said. I worked at a network before, so there's two sides of the equation, right? You have the advertisers and you have the publishers. So the publishers are the games that will create the spaces for, for the ads to show up in, and a lot of the decision making comes down to, how many ads do I want to show to my players. So you have those games that are, generally lower production. They're made quickly. They usually play them for a few minutes. They're called hyper casual by and large. And those games, because they have such a low production, they want to make a lot of money, so they put a lot of ads in. So you might think it's spammy, but that's just their business model. You're very unlikely, and 99.9% of people are very unlikely to spend any actual money buying something for the game, because there's not really anything to buy. So the model is to advertise to players, and answering, I think that part of the question was, do they actually make money on it? They do make money on it, because they're showing millions of ads to millions of people, because those games are really going for peanuts, right? So they do make a lot of money. Then you have, of course, the on the other side of the equation, the advertisers are spending quite a lot of money. So if you think about, let's say $50, for the ad placement, the advertiser that shows that particular ad to a hyper casual game will get maybe 2 cents from the $50, and all the value goes down to all the different players in the chain, So there's a lot of middlemen that are kind of taking a little bit of the money to distribute that, because the technology is incredibly complex. Sometimes you have 6 different players at any given time passing information to each other to make sure that the ad reaches from the advertiser all the way to the game.
And then you also have the thing where the amount you spend on your advertising is also dependent on how much other game companies spend on their advertising. So the amount that you have to spend can vary from week to week. So this is why you have all of those analysts who need to basically look at that all the time and keep adjusting to make sure that the balance between spend and revenue is still on the right track, basically.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about Daniels. Go ahead. I see you unmuted yourself. Go right ahead, Daniel.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, because you always see that the game that doesn't make any sense in the ads, but it's constantly on your feed, and you always wonder yourself, does this actually make any money? Well, if it's there, probably yes. And it has a lot to do what Fernando said, that is it's return over investment. If you have a really low entry bar, you can resort to some methods that's quite annoying to the consumer, but it's so cheap if you get a retention of let's say a very symbolical, like a 30%, 40% of the retention from players, even if the player is gonna take like a half an hour to finish your game, or even less, that's okay, because the entry bar for this kind of hyper casual games, especially the nefarious one that really botched, it's really low. So I cannot say this is an advantage, because it can be easier. No, it's not going to take you anywhere. But once again, if it's there, probably someone's going to make money. Probably.
All right. I see. I remember now that we're on the topic of ads as well. There was a question in the chat. I am not sure again who asked it, but it was about an ads with portraying fake gameplay. So gameplay that actually is not part of the game. How do you respond to the question of fake gameplay? Yeah, Daniel, go ahead.
It's quite a rabbit hole. It's quite a rabbit hole. If you're really interested in it, you can find lots of contents that explore this kind of cursed ads, if I may say. It's because the quality insurance from apps and from Google Ads, if you're paying, fine. But it can be quite elusive because if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't have someone that knows what they're doing with Google Ads and even Facebook ads, any kind of ad on the internet, they gonna push you for further reach and ask you for more money. If you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna spend a lot of money without any results. But this kind of ads that only shows how the quality insurance that we have right now, it's not that great, But then again, like we said earlier, Google and Apple are trying to make steps to get away from this stigma that they have. But then
Annelie,
again,
yeah.
it's hard to keep track of all apps that goes into the store, so it's not easy feature. I'm not trying to judge them. That
All right, thank you, Annelie. I see you wanted to add something as well.
Yes, trying to find a break, but I think yes, it's always good to find the right balance with these fake ads. I mean, the fake ads appeared in a period where there was so much competition in the market that they really were desperate to find the angle to still reach their audience, right? And I think it is as much, of course, the companies that need to pay attention to what kind of fake ads they choose to display and what kind of themes they pick. It's also for the ad companies to really watch out for what should be allowed in their platform and what shouldn't be. It's about the regulators that kind of help the companies guide them to what is ethical. But in the end, the companies, they often also have thousands of employees, and they sometimes work with so small margins that they will try the trick. And it's often about like diversifying who you talk to and really like standing out from how other companies advertise. And if your game is quite similar to what other game companies do, but just different in a certain aspect, it's really hard to convey this in this ad business where you have just 2 seconds to convince the player to click. And when you hear that some players need to see an ad for your game 50 times to even consider downloading it. So of course you try very different angles. You try with several ads to give them a picture of what your game could do for them and how we could entertain them. And then some companies actually, they learned that certain fake gameplay resonates so well with the audience that they implemented it into the game. So it actually becomes a circle, and at some point it's not completely fake ads, at least anymore. And so this is something that, it's like educated game development with life experiments kind of thing. So for me, it's really important that at least there's some boundaries. And I think as an industry, we're working on these boundaries. So there's a lot of female abuse that is used right now to generate the clicks because of the, shock moments, and you want to help this character, right? And I think that we should start questioning whether this is the message we want to send, or how we twist and turn these messages to actually, not just punch the same hole all the time and abusing women, for example.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because, I don't play many games myself, in all transparency. And for some reason, I consistently receive ads on, for example, Instagram, about like a woman being kicked out of her home, like being cheated on and being out in the cold, and then you have to go through options, and it's all the time. It seems like it's really consistent. And yeah, I mean, I think there are ethical issues with that.
Yeah. The weird thing about that is, and I totally agree with the ethical issues for sure, definitely not trying to defend it, but the weird thing is that they work, again, just like we're talking about, like advertising, if it's in there, it probably works. In this case, it works really well. This is why so many of those adverts are like that or have fake game content. And the weird thing is that you would expect players to be like feel cheated when they get into the game and be like, okay, this gameplay is not in there. But actually the amount of players that are like outraged and then stop playing is like tiny. Once they get into the game, they like playing it and they accept that it's different from a threshold that you need to get people over to actually get them into your game, and then they will continue playing. And the weird thing is that a lot of players who will click also on those advertisements that are very debatable, like the ones we were just talking about, they will say that they hate those advertisements and they think it's wrong. They still click them, and then they start playing the game. They're extremely happy that the game is actually not abusive at all, and they will continue playing it. But once you change it up, you see your click rate, download rate going down, actually. So it's a sort of catch-22 where, and again, I'm definitely not defending this at all, but where I can see where companies who are mainly about making that money will be like, yeah, we don't like this either, but apparently this works for the players.
Right.
So we need to keep doing that. So it's
And
a
the
weird
safety
situation.
blanket is that, the safety blanket is that the game itself does not, like portray those themes. Fernando, I saw you unmute yourself as well.
Yeah, it's just a quick sort of analogy, I suppose, that kind of, it's advertising, right? As you mentioned, it was, to get you through the door. You never bought a bottle of shampoo and then you used it and you're like, oh my God, I feel exactly like the person in the ad that I just showed, that I saw before. Right? You never feel like that, right? It's advertising, it's to create that illusion, it's to really drive you to that purchase point. And if you don't like the shampoo afterwards, what are you going to do? You're going to return it, right? So you're not going to do anything about it. So it's very much the same sort of spirit that they do. It might be not exactly what the gameplay is about, but people are clicking on it, people want it, and they are drawn to the game, and that's the goal. If it works, I think of course, mention the stuff that was mentioned here about the gender disparities and how it's being used and leveraged, weaponized almost. To bring in players, there's a whole different issue, of course. But when you're looking at the performance side of things, if those ads there, they have nothing to do with the game itself. If they're working, they're going to continue going for it, and there's not really anyone that can stop them if you think about it.
Wow. Yeah, talking about these ads and monetization, it also makes me think. So, Thomas, you did not, you decided not to go this route with your up until now premium game. I see another question in the chat as well that I think links really well with you, Thomas. In a recent interview for Games Industry Biz, Jason De La Roca claimed that the mobile app store is way too crowded and requires too high marketing budgets for indies. And he says the regular app store market as an indie, oh man, it's next to impossible. Do you resonate with this at all? Your game got quite some press coverage here in Belgium, and I'd love to hear more about your experience with the App Store, not using ads and so on.
Yeah, but I think he's absolutely right. I also think he mainly means the free-to-play model because of the large amount of costs that are necessary to get what they call user acquisition. So that's basically what we've been talking about, getting people to just download your game mostly through means of ads. But that's not what I did, right? So, I think it was a lucky shot, which is not good if you want to have a sustainable company. But I'm just one man, so for me, I still have some savings. So as Annelie also said, don't do it for the money. I actually had a higher goal, right, which is bringing something to market. Art meets games, again for people that don't necessarily game too much. Um, and yeah, I don't know. For some reason, it resonated with these platforms, but again, it didn't necessarily convert into many sales. Um, iOS, so App Store, is definitely my best-selling platform of the both. But I think this is kind of a given in the sense that I feel there's more people that want to pay for a premium experience app on Apple, yeah, Apple, than on Android devices. It's a bit of a cliche, but it tend to be like a different audience. So there's that, and then yeah, I don't know. I would do it again, I guess. Maybe I will tweak my product a little bit more to fit multiple platforms. So also to address a PC audience. This might just be as simple as doing something 3D versus 2D. That's again a theory. It's not a proven thing. And then the second, I think you all already talked about the second question as well, because someone asked why I got so much press coverage in Belgium. Is that what the end of your question was about?
I actually merged two questions.
Yeah,
into
you merged
one.
two questions.
They were both about you, Thomas.
That's what I thought. That's what I saw it as well. To answer that question, yeah, I mean Belgium. It's my base. So this is just pure networking. And actually, talking about networking, it is very essential if you want to make it as a solo developer, also for these mobile platforms. Because I'll make it quick. At Apple, I actually contacted a biz dev from LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the future, people. It's the new Twitter.
Agreed.
Just
Love
go,
LinkedIn.
just go there, search for these people. They're all there. It's all public information. Find their email addresses in some way, or even just add them through LinkedIn. Send them a message. You never know. I bumped onto this guy who turned out to be the general manager of the App Store in Europe. He's based in Denmark, in Copenhagen, by the way. And okay, yeah, we had kind of a connection because, as I mentioned, I worked in Copenhagen as well before. But anyway, he liked the game, and this is how kind of the ball got rolling. I think this is the main reason why I got eventually nominated as a finalist. And then second, the press coverage here in Belgium. Yeah, it's because one of the people I know who's really connected to the game industry, and there aren't that many people. I think this might be the same for each country, but this is still a very small industry compared to other industries, and the journalists that cover this industry are also not that numerous. So okay, look them up, send them an email. I happen to already know him, but because he was one of the few people that wrote about games, so I got featured in the Standaard, which is a big Flemish newspaper. I also knew someone from what was it again? The Time, not the Financial Time, but like the equivalent of the Time, which is called De Tijd in Netherlands and Dutch. And that's why I got featured in the magazine. It's also maybe because of the angle. I was trying to combine art with games. I had like a prototype for an installation there, which is now just hanging on my wall. I'm actually not doing much with it anymore. But anyway, yeah, do bold stuff, do new stuff, try different stuff, and you will make ripples in the pond, and people will react to it. I think it's as simple as that.
And the importance of networking and LinkedIn. We are all gathered here today as well Many thanks to LinkedIn for that as well. All right. I see another question veering a bit off track from what we were talking about before. So I see a question. Some companies started making special phones especially for gaming. Is this something we will see in the future, or does it not have enough advantages? Daniel, I see your hand immediately. Go right ahead.
First of all, it's not something new. I don't know if you remember it, but there is a cell phone called N-Gage that used to run Tomb Raider. This is blew my mind, but it's not very good. It didn't sell too well. I think they were a little bit too ahead of their time, just like the Dreamcast. But I digress. Uh, I don't think we're gonna see that because phones are kinda ready for the mobile game in general. We are only forward. Uh, One thing that I at least hope to see, it's more use of AR in mobile game, because I think that's one of the few things that mobile can do and consoles and PC cannot. So if you can get around of this technology and create a good concept around that, I think that's going to be great. But phones prepared for that, I don't think so, because we already have it. We already have it, and the N gauge, it's an example that it didn't go quite well. It's if you search for it, it's quite it's a little brick with a big screen, emphasis on the quotes. So I think we are already in that way without making.
All right. Annelie?
Yes, I think we will see not new phones just for gaming, but I can see already some accessory. Even Apple has now more like phone accessory for gaming, because if you spend significant time on your phone, also if you look into the core gamers, they're used to certain standards of how they can hold their devices. And I think this accessory will be available for phone. And I already have seen some some where you can have on your phone a VR game and like something to put on your head to carry it. I think they have been around even in cardboard for some time, and I think there are newer devices coming out, and I think if VR gets even further, this might become something in the gamer scene that might appear, but not to the casual audience or the main market for mobile games. They will not use these gadgets because they have never traditionally been that way.
So more accessories and less so the actual phone itself. I see, unfortunately, we are almost... Yes, Thomas, go right ahead.
I just wanted to hook into that question, a very short remark. If you want to get noticed by any storefront, right, whether it's Apple, Google Play, Meta, Quest, or maybe even Steam, right? Try to make a game that makes use of their newest features, because they also just want to sell their hardware. And right, so okay, you might not become rich again, but you will still be noticed. So it might be a gimmick, but maybe it's enough to push you forward, while otherwise you wouldn't have been pushed forward.
Yeah, that's a great comment, Thomas. Yeah, great insight. I see we are almost out on time, but I want to finish with actually a question that I had while putting together this panel, actually. And I'm not sure if it's specific to my experience, but I was very curious, so I wanted to bring it into the discussion. And it has to do with diversity, I guess, and inclusion within the mobile game space. For some reason, and I'm not sure why, and I'd love to hear some other opinions, I had a unusually difficult time finding females in the mobile game space, working on mobile games. I'm not sure if this was only my experience, could be, but I want to hear your takes, and especially Jedidjah, based on your presentation. I know you offered some different statistics. I'd like to hear more about that kind of division within the mobile game industry.
I think that your what you're mentioning about women in the mobile game space, I think we can have a whole discussion about women in the game space in general, obviously. I don't think it's that different from mobile gaming. I think, as far as I can see, in the mobile gaming realm, there has been a weird discrepancy where the mobile gaming realm has been focusing on a female audience, while not having those females within the workforce. And I think that has shifted, as far as I can see, because there are many more women working in the mobile gaming realm than a couple of years ago. I started my gaming career in mobile gaming about 8-9 years ago. Back then, there weren't a lot of women in there, and it was men writing about women for women. I went into AAA and indie for a while, and I'm now back in mobile gaming, and it's totally switched the other way around, as far as I can see. So I think that's great. And as we have just seen in the statistics, yes, women gamers are almost half, or in some statistics, even more than half of the gaming audience. And it's like that for the whole gaming audience, not just for mobile. So I think that we should also start thinking differently about that mobile gaming realm and be like, okay, yes, there is a large female audience, especially a slightly older female audience. I think Annelie mentioned that. I would almost call them legacy female players who are really very loyal and amazing audience to have. But it has changed. So I think that balance is now so much better, both within the workforce as well as in the audience. And I can see that only developing in an even more balanced situation in the coming years.
That's great to hear. Annelie, I see your hand up as well. Go right ahead.
So I can just chime in on that. I also think there was a great transformation, and I think a lot of women and also anyone with a more diverse background than the typical white male game developer that loves core games, because a lot of my colleagues, actually, they wouldn't play the games that they were building themselves, right? They wouldn't play a Candy Crush. They were all just at work talking about more core games, console games, and they were like not at all interested in the things that they were at parts doing for the audience. I mean, there are always exceptions. I don't want to generalize the whole, but there was a pattern there. And I could see how more and more women got curious about, especially mobile games, with these games for them, because they started playing these games. So some younger woman contacted me. Oh, I love these games. I play them a lot. I have so many ideas, And then I would be like, oh yeah, let's do an internship here, and let's get you exposed to the world of mobile games. And most of them stayed just because it was inherently an interest in this kind of gameplay. But there was also a shift in general diversity. I would not say that just male-female is enough diversity for me. We had a team that, especially now in the COVID times, that they could really understand how neurodiverse they are, and how they, some of them really had an amazing time working from home, and you could really see how their contributions in the team really leveled up, because they were in a more safe space for themselves and less distracted. And we could also see that with like during the pandemic, how we might have hired even more Germans suddenly, just because people were not as open to move around, while Wooga was historically always full of cultures 60 different nations under one roof, right? This is something that the company was about, but then during COVID, sadly, it was super hard to achieve that, right? And now that we are all open again and travel again, we have, again, colleagues joining us from all over the world. And this is the richness that I think really is necessary to go through these challenging times now with the macroeconomic climate, but also in the high competition of the market, and really understanding the audiences that you want to serve, because the audience that we want to serve is not just male, white, and loves core games, right? So this kind of understanding, I think, and diversity will make our games better in the end, and it's more fun to work in this environment.
All right. Annelie, thank you so much. Eloquently said. Appreciate it. All right. Unfortunately, I hate to do this. I would love to continue this discussion for hours to come, honestly. But unfortunately, it is time. I would like to thank Thomas, Fernando, Jedidjah, Annelie, and Daniel for being here so very much and for sharing their unique and very valuable insights. Give some love for them in the chat, everyone. Thank them for their very precious time. Thank you so much for coming on to Game for Thought and sharing your viewpoints, insights, experience surrounding mobile games. All right, everyone out there on Twitch, stick around for just a minute longer, and you'll hear more about the Game for Thought upcoming live streams in the spring semester. One more time, please thank our wonderful panelists, and we will see you in just a minute. All right, everyone, thank you so very much for joining yet another Game for Thought live stream. Thank you for joining us right here on Twitch. Thank you for asking some wonderful questions and enjoying a nice fireside evening at Howest DIE. Much appreciated. As I said before, huge thank you to our panelists and our guests tonight, Jedidjah, Fernando, Thomas, Annelie, and Daniel, and a huge thank you to my technical team for the evening. Thank you to Luke. Huge thank you to Casper as well. We couldn't pull it off without you two, so thank you very much. Just to let you know that this was the last stream, the last Game for Thought stream of 2022, actually. So this is the last Game for Thought stream of the year. We will come back kicking in 2023. Make sure to already mark it in your calendar. We will be back on the 15th of February with a stream about community building in digital entertainment. So 15th February, make sure to already keep that in your calendars. We really look forward to coming back on with you all. In the meantime, everyone, please have a wonderful holiday season. Stay nice and warm wherever you are. Have some nice time with some loved ones. Take the time for rest, relaxation. Just be there for yourself. And we really appreciate you joining this evening with us. All right, with that, thank you so very much and have a wonderful holiday. Bye-bye, everyone.